Application A is the application by Federal Express Corporation for payment in lieu of tax exemption pilot for the project located at 3847 31st Street North, which applicant is to use the operation for a short facility utilizing manual labor to sort packages in containers, bulk-loaded trucks, and shuttle vans. Ben Huska is going to explain.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The Tax Exempt Review Committee met with Federal Express. They are moving an operation into Fargo that's not now currently in town. They'll be occupying an existing building at the airport as well as constructing a new structure. The Tax Review Committee met and is recommending a 10-year payment in lieu of tax based on 5 years at 100% exemption equivalent and 5 years at 50%.
Does Federal Express want to speak?
They are present.
Mr. Mayor, Commission, my name is Steve Wilson. I represent FedEx Express. We're requesting the 10-year pilot for the sort facility as well as new air operations at the airport. We plan on beginning flight schedule October 31st. We'll employ 74 employees immediately, and we anticipate the employment base to grow. We also look forward to becoming part of the corporate community of Fargo and supporting the community at large. Sean and his team at the Airport Commission has done a very diligent job trying to get us relocate here. Good job, Sean. Mr. Mayor, we also appreciate your support. We hope that the Commission approves our request.
Now, I've heard a rumor that Sean's been looking after you guys for about 20 years now. This is a big move, isn't it, Sean? Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions from the Commission?
I have a question.
Commissioner
Sean,
Garrett.
you wouldn't mind coming up too, Sean? And while you're walking up, I'll just ask it. Sean, did the airport give any incentives to FedEx to come to Fargo?
No, we did not.
Okay. And I should have started by saying I think it's fantastic you guys are coming here finally. You took your time doing it, but we really appreciate you guys coming here. And that's a big deal for the city of Fargo. It's a multi-million-dollar a year impact to our community, so that's fantastic. Mr. Wilson, if you don't get this exemption, will you still move to Fargo?
Yes, sir, we will.
Okay.
We also look forward to enhancing the service of the market as well as the state.
Okay. So obviously the but-for question for me is not there. The airport did not offer any incentives. They still came. They come to Fargo because we have the best workforce. We have 2 interstates that come through us. We have a fantastic airport, and you guys will benefit greatly for being here in Fargo. And we will love to be a part of that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak to this tax exempt? If not, we'll close public hearing. Can I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the suggested motion, basically just to give them a 50%. And we talked about it earlier, but basically they had requested 100% initially, and so we gave them the 5 years at 50. The other thing, this is a huge deal. We are getting this from Grand Forks. It assists many companies in Fargo to be instantly more competitive. And so this is a great thing, and economic development is one of our charges. So without a doubt, this is a great addition to our city. Thank you.
No, just to make the motion clear, it's a tax exempt 5 years at 100%, then 5 years at 50% for a total of 10 years.
Yes.
Is there any other discussion?
I'll just say this
Commissioner
for the
Gary.
ones that are coming up here as well. It has been my contention that we are offering incentives when we don't need to be in order to grow the economy. And this is a perfect example of that. Dave is right. This is a huge deal for the city of Fargo. Economic development is important. We don't need to be offering these incentives to do that. A low sustainable tax rate is the best way to go. And if we offer this incentive to this company, everyone else in the city of Fargo picks up that $86,000 a year tab that they're not paying. They don't need it. They're still coming here. They're going to grow with us in the city of Fargo because we're the best place to be.
Mr. Grinberg?
Was there a second?
Oh, I'm sorry. Was there a second? No, not yet.
I did not second it.
Commissioner Strand?
Was there a motion, Mayor Mahoney?
Motion was made, I'm sorry, Dave, we didn't have the second to that.
You do have a second. I'll second it for the
Okay.
sake of discussion, absolutely. And Mayor Mahoney, if I might continue, what I'm curious, Mr. Huska, if you could help me understand, what I'm curious about is the variances of these exemptions and targeted incentives. I'm assuming there's a rhyme or reason to them. Like what makes the difference of somebody who gets 5 years at such and such a rate and another 5 years at a different rate, and it varies from the next one on the agenda? And then in the past and going forward, we'll see lots of, I'm sure, even more variations.
Right, there are some standards in some of the exemptions. Downtown apartment projects, for instance, the standard for that is 5 years at 100% and 5 at 75%. The general standard going in, a policy which is in the process of being revised at this point, but is a 5-year 100%. Some of the larger projects have been granted the 5 at 100% and 5 at 50%. So you're correct. There are some varying standards, so to speak, depending on the size of the project and the size in terms of jobs and or ultimate tax base to be added.
Mayor Mahoney, if I might continue.
Mr. Strand?
This is what concerns me. I'm pro-development, but I just don't want to be landing on different policies on different days. And if it's under review, I'm curious if the ultimate policy is this the Tax Exempt Review Committee?
Correct.
It is. Since January, I believe they were charged with that, I think. I'm concerned about if the policy turns this all upside down, or if it confirms our existing behavior, or if the precedent going forward will contradict previous decisions, or if we'll have future policies that mirror the decisions that have been meted out in the recent past.
Right.
The Tax Exempt Committee is doing its review, and they're the ones that made this recommendation, Commissioner Strand, so they are doing that in light of what the new recommendations are. And it was questioned to that, does this go against the new policies? It does not. Two of the items they look for Tax Exempt Committee's land or building. So in one of this, you see that we're putting a new building, new construction, 5.2 million. It's, what you're adding to the community. And the second big part of tax exemption is how many employees you add to the community. So it was built around a lot of times manufacturing jobs. And the struggle, I think Commissioner Pepcorn can comment to this, the struggle we're having sometimes is it doesn't always add employees on a, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. Oftentimes it starts with employees and then it stops at that. So oftentimes what the Tax Exemption Committee looks at is it's a new business in the community and what are they investing in the community? Would we have this new building or property if we did not have that? So I don't know, Commissioner Pepcorn, if you want, is it in line with the policies that you're coming out with?
Yes, it is, and that is a challenge. There's a lot of new businesses starting up where they use technology, and actually they don't bring in as many employees. So it is, there's some changes going on, and so it's, and John, if you'd like to come to our meetings, you're more than welcome to come to the Tax Exempt Review, and actually we'll have this item up for discussion at our next meeting, and so if you want us to, we'll notify you. We'd love to have you come.
Mayor Mahoney, if I might, members of the commission, again, I'm not expressing opposition at all. I'm just wanting a consistency. And it was my general sense that the Tax Exempt Review Committee was charged with bringing these new policies forward, I want to say by June. So here we have multiple requests going forward without a firm standing on the policy. And now, if I find out that the policy mirrors this action and the commission endorses that, that's fine. But if we flip it inside out, and then that's my concern, is the policy.
No, and
Commissioner Pepcorn?
I totally share your concerns, John, and I do think that we have to be consistent, because if we're not consistent, we'll find ourselves in a legal thing where Eric Johnson will be involved, and so I do agree. But I will reiterate what the mayor said. The Tax Exempt Review Committee, we're the ones who reviewed it and brought this forward, and with a unanimous recommendation to pass, too, so.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Garrick.
Hey, Mr. Grimmer, you can go ahead.
Commissioner Grinberg.
Well, this is great discussion, just a few comments. I've followed in the press Commissioner Strand's comments about, this policy change that we're working on. And my comments will involve this application as well, but I think it's important that we get this right. We look at what's going on around us. There's significant scrutiny going on at the Capitol with incentives, and I've always been a proponent of incentives. In fact, my name is on a lot of the legislation over the years, and so I'm an advocate where it's needed and where it makes a difference. I do have concerns with this application, however, in part because my philosophy as an economic development professional and as a legislator is we don't use incentives to attract a business from one community to another within the state of North Dakota. Here we have a sister city in Grand Forks, and I have a philosophical problem with that. And it's already been stated that the business is going to be here anyway. In fact, do a Google search, you read about the March news stories about their moving. And so I philosophically have a hard time getting my head around that. I think FedEx is great corporate citizen. We want them in our community. But to me, it's just out of sync with how I think and what I've advocated for in the past. And like where we're going with the new policy, this is going to have to be set up and really put a lot of time in. So I'm not sure this is going to be a magic solution in the next 2 weeks either. But I hope our full commission has ample opportunity.
This is free candy that we're giving away if we do this. They're coming here because we're the best city for them. So I can even understand the arguments that you guys make when we're trying to, you know, make a city come downtown or make a city come or make a business come to Fargo. They need the incentive in order to do it. I have asked now 3 or 4 different companies if they need incentives. They said no, and we're still approving it. That makes no sense whatsoever. So please vote on the current document and vote on the idea, are they going to come here unless they get the incentive or not? A but-for question.
Commissioner Strand.
Mayor Mahoney, members of the commission, I wouldn't want to prejudice future decisions or future policies based on piecemeal decisions or changing decisions or evolving decisions. I would want the policy to direct the decisions. That's where I'm at. And I'm not anti-development. I'm for progress. I'm really appreciating Commissioner Grinberg's concerns about statutory intentions with regard to incentives. But where I'm at is if it doesn't follow the existing policy and if the policy is evolving and if the policy is not yet to come to the commission and it's delayed in coming to the commission in the expected fashion, I'm cautious to make any decisions before we're so far down the road. That's the presumed policy. And that bothers me, that we're just prejudicing future policies relative to behavior and actions. And I'd rather have the policy direct actions. Then it doesn't matter who they are, it doesn't matter their names, it doesn't matter how wealthy they are or not. It simply meets the criteria of the established and agreed upon and endorsed policy of the commission. That's all I say, is let the policy direct our actions. And I'm concerned about the consequences if we deviate from these perceived to be policies when it comes to the commission. If we change it then after the fact.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Pipcorn, just point of information, I'm not sure this breaks existing policy.
No, it follows the existing policy. You made a false statement saying this doesn't follow policy. That's not true. It does follow the current policy. Correct, Ben?
Just a point of clarification on that. The current proposed revisions to the policy deal with 2 primary areas: incentives for downtown retail and lodging, and companies that probably don't add as many jobs but add technology. We have granted facilities like this before have fit our policy, and this fit our policy in terms of it's not just warehousing, they are processing and they are shipping, and we have granted on those. I can think of one where a product was brought into the warehouse, some repackaging done and shipped. I believe it was the Vanity Project on 25th Street North. And this, we did have the discussion at the Tax Review Committee that this is more than just warehousing and trucking. They are packaging and sorting and processing. So from that perspective, this did fit our policy, and the recommendation of the committee to grant 5 years at 100% and 5 at 50% is not setting precedent. Those have been granted on other projects before as well.
Mayor Mahoney,
Commissioner
so I'm
Strand.
clear, this does mirror current policy then?
Correct.
That's where I was, thank you for that clarification. I needed to hear that.
And one other point of clarification on the second page of the agenda item where the projected payment, the last 5 years should actually be $43,980 and not the $21,990. That's half of the roughly $87,000 what the full tax would be.
And the tax exempt committee did that because they didn't want them to take full 100%. They felt that after
Correct.
5 years, they'd be
There
up
was a
and running.
motion at tax exempt review to grant the full 10 years at 100%, which failed. And then the motion that did pass was basically to fit what has been granted on other projects recently, and that's the 5 at 100% and 5 at 50%.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Gehrig?
No.
Grinberg?
Nay.
Mahoney?
Aye. Next item.